Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, tucked between a fashion magazine and bills, like a serpent coiled among wildflowers. Evangeline Harper sat in her home office, surrounded by the rewards of her thriving art career, canvases that had won her acclaim in Manhattan's cutthroat art world, accolades shining on walnut shelves, and the understated elegance that marked her as one of New York's emerging talents in modern art. None of it felt real now. Her shaky fingers brushed the silver-embossed script on the ivory envelope. She didn't need to open it. The return address said it all. Theodore Grayson and Sophia Bennett cordially invited her to witness their union. Theodore, her fiancé of 4 years. Sophia, her closest friend since university. The betrayal was absolute. Evangeline's eyes drifted to the painting across from her desk, the one she'd been crafting for their wedding. It was supposed to be a gift, a tribute to their love story. Theodore proposing in Central Park, the way the fall leaves had swirled around them, how flawless everything had seemed. Now, the canvas taunted her with its unfinished grace, much like their relationship halted and fated to stay that way. She stood from her sleek chair, her Manolos tapping against the oak floors as she approached the towering windows of her Upper West Side apartment. The city stretched out before her, a labyrinth of concrete and light that had seen countless ambitions soar and crash. Somewhere out there, in one of those gleaming towers, Theodore was likely with Sophia, plotting their perfect day. The memory of last month's dinner party hit her like a flood. They'd all been there. Theodore, Sophia, their shared circle. Had everyone known? Had they all smirked behind her back, watching her plan a future that would never come? Her phone vibrated relentlessly, messages from worried friends, no doubt. The gossip must have raced through their network like a storm. Evangeline Harper, the artistic genius, abandoned for her best friend. It would be the talk of the year. Miss Harper. Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. The gallery called. "They need your input on the next exhibition's design." "Cancel it all," Evangeline replied, her tone oddly calm. "Clear my calendar for the next 2 weeks." "But Miss Harper," the Caldwell opening. "Everything, Nora. Cancel it." She turned back to her desk, lifting the invitation with a sudden determination. The paper crumpled in her fist before she flung it into the trash. 4 years of memories followed. Snapshots, trinkets, notes, all the tangible scraps of a love built on deceit. Her laptop pinged with an email alert. "Theodore. Subject. We should talk." Evangeline's finger lingered over the trackpad, tempted to read whatever justification he'd spun. Instead, she opened a new tab and went to the airline site. She needed to flee, to a place where the rumors couldn't chase her, where sympathetic stares wouldn't trail her every step. Miami popped up in the search, a city of spontaneity, bad choices, and clean slates. Ideal. She booked the earliest flight, then headed to her bedroom to pack. The sprawling walk-in closet that once sparked joy now felt oppressive. Couture gowns hung like specters of past galas, each tied to nights out with Theodore and Sophia. Sophia. The sting of her best friend's betrayal cut deeper than Theodore's cheating. They'd been inseparable since their first day at RISD. Sophia had been there for it all. Evangeline's debut gallery show, her parents split, endless late nights, trading hopes and anxieties over glasses of rose. How long had it been happening? How many times had Sophia comforted her over fights with Theodore, all while knowing she was the reason? The questions seared her mind as she tossed clothes into her Gucci suitcase. Her phone rang again. Sophia's face flashed on the screen, a photo from their trip to London last fall. They'd spent a week scouring art museums and thrift stores, sharing confidences and aspirations. Had she been with Theodore then? Had they mocked her trust? Evangeline rejected the call and blocked the number. The bedroom wall still bore photos from brighter days. She and Theodore at the Whitney Biennial. Sophia's arm around her at her last birthday party. The three of them hiking in Vermont. Each picture now exposed hints she'd overlooked. The way Theodore tilted slightly toward Sophia in group shots. The covert looks they exchanged. The growing gap between her and Theodore that she'd chalked up to his demanding job at the hedge fund. She'd been so blind. A knock at her door jolted her. Through the peephole, she saw Theodore in the hall, still in his work suit, looking unkempt. His presence ignited not yearning but fury, a blazing wrath that scorched away her last tears. "Evangeline, please?" His voice filtered through the door. "Let me explain." She pressed her forehead to the cool wood, recalling all the nights he'd come home late, citing critical trades. Had he been with Sophia then? Had they rendezvoused in secret while she stayed up, trusting his loyalty? "There's nothing to explain," she shot back, her voice frigid. The invitation said enough. "It wasn't meant to go this way," he begged. "We planned to tell you properly. Sophia and I, it just happened." Evangeline laughed, a brittle sound that rang in the silent apartment. "Things like this don't just happen, Theodore. You chose every lie, every hidden meeting, every betrayal was a choice. I didn't want to hurt you. That's the issue, isn't it? You didn't want anything. You just let it unfold. Let me believe in a life you were dismantling. Leave, Theodore. Go plan your wedding. I'm sure Sophia's waiting." His silence confirmed her hunch. Of course, Sophia was waiting, probably in his car downstairs. "I loved you, Evangeline. Part of me still does." "No, you loved the concept of me," the acclaimed artist. "The ideal fiancé who never doubted your late nights or sudden trips. Go, Theodore. You've lost any claim to my words." She heard him exhale. Then his footsteps faded down the corridor. Only when the elevator chimed did she breathe again. Her laptop pinged with another email, the flight confirmation. In 5 hours, she'd be on a plane to Miami, leaving behind the ruins of her New York life. Evangeline moved through her apartment with intent now, grabbing essentials and shifting funds for an extended stay. The city that once felt like hers now seemed to tighten around her, every corner steeped in memories she needed to shed. She called her gallery director, leaving precise instructions for upcoming shows. Her art would endure, even if her personal world had collapsed. She'd forged her career from scratch, and no betrayal could strip that away. As dusk painted the Manhattan skyline in hues of amber and violet, Evangeline took a final look at her apartment. The half-done wedding painting caught her eye again. With measured steps, she approached it, grabbed a palette knife, and slashed through the canvas, obliterating the image of a love that was never true. The doorman aided with her bags, discreetly ignoring her tear-streaked face. "Will you be away long, Miss Harper?" "I'm not sure, Henry," she answered truthfully. "Sometimes you have to leave it all behind to rediscover yourself." As her cab wove through Manhattan traffic toward LaGuardia, Evangeline blocked every number but her parents and assistants. She shut down her social media and silenced email alerts. The life she'd meticulously crafted over 4 years had shattered, but from its debris, something new would emerge. The wedding invitation in her trash felt symbolic now, not of her defeat, but of her freedom. Theodore and Sophia had unwittingly given her the shove she needed to break free from the gilded cage of expectations and obligations that had been quietly choking her. Gazing at the city lights streaking past her window, Evangeline felt something unexpected, possibility. Amid the crushing ache of betrayal and the urgent need to flee, a faint flicker of anticipation had sparked. She was unbound now, free from deceit, free from facades, free from a future rooted in illusion. Miami loomed with its promises of reinvention and fresh starts. She didn't know what awaited her, but anything was better than lingering here, drowning in what might have been. As her cab reached the departure terminal, Evangeline squared her shoulders and raised her chin. They say living well is the best revenge. She planned to do more than that. She planned to flourish. Little did she know, fate had already begun weaving a chain of events that would lead her to a love story beyond her wildest dreams. In less than a day, she'd meet a man who would transform her life forever. But for now, all she knew was the need to escape New York. The universe, it seemed, had grander designs for Evangeline Harper designs that would make her present pain a vital step toward an incredible destiny. Chapter 2. Fate's Hand. Miami's lights assaulted Evangeline's senses as her cab snaked down Ocean Drive. Each neon sign pulsed in time with her heartbeat, a chorus of artificial stars outshining the real ones veiled by the city's constant glow. She'd picked the Fontainebleau, not for its grandeur, but for its repute as a refuge for those craving anonymity amid extravagance. The vast lobby unfurled before her, a monument to excess and escape. Chandeliers glittered, casting prismatic patterns across marble floors that had seen countless tales like hers, though perhaps not quite like hers. She was, after all, Evangeline Harper, the artist whose last show had sold out in hours. Now, she was just another soul seeking solace in Vice City. "Welcome to the Fontainebleau, Miss Harper." The receptionist beamed, her rehearsed warmth stopping short of her eyes. We've upgraded you to a premium suite." Evangeline took the keycard with a quiet thanks. The suite would be wasted on her. She hadn't come to Miami for luxury. She'd come to lose herself, to erase the image of that wedding invitation seared into her mind. The elevator lifted her to the 25th floor, each rising level widening the gap between her and her old life. Her phone had buzzed nonstop during the flight texts from gallery owners, friends, even her father, all seeking answers she wasn't ready to give. The suite was as she'd anticipated, refined opulence in cream and bronze, with expansive windows framing the city's shimmering sprawl. She dropped her bags by the door and made a beeline for the minibar. If ever there was a moment for overpriced hotel liquor, this was it. 3 hours later, dressed in a sleek black dress that made her feel more like herself, Evangeline descended to the hotel bar. Liv was alive with the electric buzz only Miami could muster, a blend of desperation, hope, and wild abandon. She picked a spot at the bar, away from the throng. The bartender approached with smooth precision, his name tag reading Julian. "Cosmopolitan, please," she ordered, savoring the irony. "Make it strong. Escaping something or celebrating?" Julian asked as he mixed her drink. "Is there another choice?" She offered a faint smile. "In Miami, those are usually the only 2 buckets we see." The Cosmo materialized before her, crowned with a perfect twist. She sipped, letting the sharp bite of vodka anchor her in the now. Around her, the bar thrummed with voices in various tongues, punctuated by bursts of laughter or the clink of glass. Then she felt it, the weight of a stare, not the fleeting look she was used to, but something deeper, more intentional. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd until her gaze locked with his. He sat at a corner table, alone amid the chaos, tall, strikingly handsome, with chestnut hair that drank in the bar's dim light and eyes that held mysteries she suddenly wanted to unravel. He wore a suit that likely cost more than most people's rent, but it was his aura, not his attire, that demanded notice. Their eyes held for 1 beat, 2, 3. Then he rose, cutting through the crowd with the lithe grace of a hunter. Every step brought him nearer, and Evangeline's pulse raced. Part of her wanted to bolt. She wasn't ready for this. For him, for whatever this might become, but a stronger part, the part that had booked that flight to Miami, kept her anchored to her stool. "This seat taken?" His voice was rich, with an accent she couldn't pin, old wealth laced with something rougher, more primal. "Depends who's asking," she replied, startled by her own audacity. He smiled then, a real smile that turned his face from merely striking to mesmerizing. "Cassian Vale," he said, easing onto the stool beside her. "And you look like you're running from something." The precision of his guess startled a laugh from her. "Or towards something," she countered, sipping her Cosmo. "Want to get married?" She meant it as a quip, a bitter nod to her own mess. But the words lingered between them, electric with potential. His eyes darkened as he studied her, and she felt bare, as if he could see every scar Theodore and Sophia had left. "Yes," he said simply. Evangeline nearly choked on her drink. "I was kidding," she managed, though something in her chest tightened at his reply. "Were you?" Cassian signaled the bartender, ordering a bourbon neat with the easy authority of someone accustomed to obedience. "Because I wasn't." "You can't be serious." She turned to face him fully, taking in the chiseled line of his jaw, the subtle markers of power and privilege she'd been trained to spot since childhood. "You don't even know my name." "Then tell me," he challenged, his gaze unwavering. "Tell me everything." And somehow, in that moment, amid the chaos of a Miami bar, Evangeline wanted to do just that. There was something about Cassian Vale that made her want to shed her carefully built defenses, to be raw, in a way she hadn't been with anyone in years, not even Theodore. "Evangeline Harper," she offered, watching recognition spark in his eyes. Her name carried weight in certain circles, though clearly not as much as his, judging by the staff's attentive hovering. "The artist," he nodded. "I saw your show at the Perez last spring. Your interplay of color and form, it was stunning." The praise, given with real admiration rather than duty, warmed something inside her. "You know art?" "I know brilliance," he corrected, his stare intensifying, in all its shapes. The conversation flowed as smoothly as the drinks, hours melting into a cocoon of shared truths and surprising bonds. Cassian spoke of his own flight from family pressures, forced engagements, and the stifling burden of tradition. She told him about Theodore and Sophia, the words pouring out without the bite she'd expected. "They did you a favor," Cassian said at last. his hand finding hers on the bar. Sometimes we need to lose it all to find what we're truly meant for. His touch sent a jolt through her, rousing parts of her she thought had died with Theodore's betrayal. The logical part of her screamed, this was madness. You don't marry strangers in Miami, no matter how magnetic they are, but logic had led her to Theodore, to 4 years of lies. I meant what I said earlier, Cassian continued, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, about marriage. Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Why would you want to marry a stranger? Because you're not a stranger, he replied with a certainty that shook her. I've known you my whole life. I just didn't know it was you I was waiting for. The words should have felt trite, rehearsed, but from him, they carried a raw honesty that struck something deep within her. She looked into his eyes and saw not the polished veneer of Theodore's affection, but something untamed and real and terrifyingly vivid. This is insane, she whispered, but she was already standing, her hand still in his. Sanity's overrated, he smiled, guiding her toward the exit. Sometimes the wildest choices are the ones that save us. The Miami night wrapped around them as they stepped outside, the air crackling with possibility. Street artists and revelers blurred past as they walked, their destination unspoken but clear. The Eden Rock Chapel glowed like a lighthouse in the dark, its neon vow of eternal love both gaudy and somehow fitting. Cassian never released her hand, giving her every chance to turn back, to retreat to the safety of her old plans. But Evangeline Harper had spent her life playing it safe, following rules, being who everyone expected. Look where that had landed her. Maybe it was time to be reckless, to leap into the abyss. Last chance to run, Cassian murmured as they reached the chapel doors. Evangeline looked up at him, this captivating stranger who felt more real than anyone she'd known in years. I'm done running, she replied, and pushed the door open. The chapel's interior was pure. Miami, coral walls, plastic blooms, and a salsa dancing officiant who'd likely perform their vows. But none of that mattered. What mattered was how Cassian looked at her as they signed the forms like she was a work of art he couldn't believe was real. As they exchanged simple silver bands under the officiant's watchful eye, Evangeline felt something she never had with Theodore: calm. This mad choice, this dive into the unknown with a man she'd known for hours, felt truer than 4 years of meticulous planning ever had. You may kiss the bride, the officiant declared, and Cassian drew her close. His kiss was beyond her imagination better. It was heat and promise and potential, all fused into one moment that seemed to stretch forever. When they parted, both breathless, the world felt realigned. Miss S. Vale, he whispered against her lips, and the name sent shivers through her. They barely reached his penthouse suite because, of course he had the penthouse, before passion consumed them. Their first time was fervent, urgent, as if they were racing to reclaim all the years they hadn't known each other existed. As they lay entwined in satin sheets afterward, Cassian traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Any regrets? He asked, a hint of vulnerability beneath his assured tone. Ask me tomorrow, she replied, nestling closer. But as she drifted off in her new husband's arms, Evangeline knew the truth. For the first time she'd acted on instinct alone, and it felt utterly right. Little did she know, morning would bring revelations that would make her spontaneous wedding seem like the sanest choice she'd ever made. Cassian Vale was more than a handsome stranger in a Miami bar. He was about to upend her world in ways she couldn't fathom. But for now, she slept soundly, sheltered by the arms of a man who'd seen her shattered pieces and chosen her anyway. Sometimes she realized as sleep took her, the best love stories start with a touch of madness. Chapter 3. Morning light sunlight poured through expansive windows, casting golden designs across satin sheets worth more than most people's rent. Evangeline woke slowly, her mind piecing together the previous night's events. The weight of the silver band on her left hand proved it wasn't a dream. She was married to a stranger in Miami. The spot beside her was empty but warm, and the sound of a shower running nearby told her where her new husband had gone. Husband. The word felt alien yet fitting when tied to Cassian Vale. As her artist's eye surveyed the room, details missed in last night's fervor emerged. The suite wasn't just lavish, it was exceptional. Original artworks adorned the walls, not the bland hotel prints she knew well. Her breath hitched as she spotted a Basquiat, its bold strokes dominating the morning light. The nightstand held a Vacheron Constantin watch she knew outpriced her first gallery sale. A leather satchel, with the discreet but unmistakable Ferragamo logo, leaned against a chair, beside a suit jacket that screamed bespoke Italian craftsmanship. "Good morning, Miss S." Vale, Cassian's voice, pulled her focus to the bathroom doorway. He stood there in just a towel, water trailing down his chest, looking even more devastating in daylight. But it was his eyes that held her piercing, perceptive, catching every flicker of emotion as she took in their surroundings. "The Basquiat's real, isn't it?" she asked, her art instincts kicking in despite the moment. A smile tugged at his lips. "Yes, as is the Warhol in the lounge, though I prefer your pieces." Evangeline sat up, clutching the satin sheet to her chest. "Who are you, really?" "The same man you married last night." He approached the bed, sitting near her, though maybe with a few details I should have mentioned. Before he could elaborate, a soft knock at the door cut in. Cassian rose with effortless grace, slipping on a plush robe before answering. A team of hotel staff entered, rolling in a lavish breakfast spread fit for a royal court. "Your usual morning order, Mr. Vale, the butler," because of course there was a butler, announced with polished deference. "And I've added some options for Miss S. Vale." The way he said her new name, with such natural ease, made this bizarre reality suddenly tangible. Evangeline watched as the staff moved with balletic precision, laying out a feast, from fresh croissants to truffles. "The morning papers, sir." Another staffer approached with a stack of publications, though you might want to review them privately first. Cassian's expression tightened as he skimmed the headlines. After the staff left, he handed one to Evangeline. Her heart stopped as she read, "Vale Heirs Mystery. Artist in Miami, Tech's most eligible bachelor, off the market." The photo, clearly snapped at the chapel, showed them exchanging rings. She looked radiant, laughing at something the officiant had said, while Cassian gazed at her with raw devotion. "Vale," she whispered, the weight of that name sinking in. "As in Vale Enterprises? The firm that owns half of Silicon Valley, among other things?" Cassian sat beside her again, his face carefully composed. "I should have told you last night. Would I have married you if I knew? That's why I didn't tell you." He took her hand, his thumb brushing her ring. "Every woman I've dated saw the name before the man. Last night, you saw me just me." The honesty in his voice stirred something in her heart, but questions still swirled. "The papers call you Tech's most eligible bachelor. There must be someone an arranged match?" "Yes," he cut in, his jaw clenching. "My family's been pushing me toward Isabella Cortez. Our fathers had a deal." His smile turned sharp. "Well, I'm married now, aren't I?" The realization dawned slowly. She hadn't just married a rich man, she'd wed into one of America's most influential dynasties. The Vales were new money elevated to legend, the kind of wealth that rewrote industries and swayed policy. "Your family will adjust," he said firmly. "I'm not Theodore Evangeline. I choose my path, and I stand by it." Mentioning Theodore snapped her back to reality. "My God," she laughed, the sound slightly wild. "I fled a cheating hedge funder and accidentally married a tech titan. To be fair, I'm much better looking than Theodore," Cassian teased, coaxing another laugh from her. He grew serious, taking both her hands. "I get it if this changes things. If you want an annulment—" "No." The words slipped out before she could think, but she knew it was true. "Unless do you want one?" His answer was a kiss that left no doubt about his stance. When they parted, breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "What I want," he murmured, "is to take my wife back to New York, show her the empire she's now part of, and spend our lives making Theodore Grayson regret every moment he had you." That sounds deliciously vengeful. I call it tactical romance with a purpose. A thought hit her, making her pull back. "The gallery opening next week, I canceled it all when I ran." "Uncanceled," he smiled. "My assistant reached yours this morning. It's back on, with some enhancements." "Enhancements?" "Let's just say the guest list now includes every major collector and critic on the coast. Your work deserves the spotlight, Evangeline, and now you've got the means to make it happen." She should have felt swamped, should have been sprinting for the exit. Instead, she felt serene, like the chaos of recent days had guided her exactly where she belonged. "There'll be gossip," she warned. "They'll say I snared you, that I'm after your fortune. Let them talk." His expression hardened. "Anyone who dares slight my wife will face the full weight of the Vale family's reach." The possessive edge in his voice thrilled her. This was nothing like Theodore's lukewarm promises. Cassian spoke with the absolute assurance of a man who could bend reality to his will. "You don't even know if we'll last," she pointed out, ever practical despite the whirlwind. "I know you're brilliant, gifted, and brave enough to walk away from a false life. I know you see the world in hues and depths others miss. I know your real smile feels like dawn breaking." He cradled her face. "The rest we'll figure out together." A ping from his phone broke the moment. He glanced at it, his look shifting to amused expectation. "What is it?" she asked. "My mother just got the news." He showed her the text. "She's insisting we return to New York ASAP for a proper party. Good or bad? Good. If she were mad, she'd be on a jet to Miami by now." He kissed her forehead. "She'll adore you once she sees how happy you make me." "And your father?" "He'll be thrilled. I've wrecked the Cortez plan. He never liked Isabella's dad anyway." Reality settled in as Evangeline pictured returning to New York. "Sophia and Theodore will hear about it." "Good." Cassian's smile took on a feral edge. "I want them to see what they lost." Speaking of which, he grabbed his phone again, typing swiftly. "What are you doing?" "Buying the building where Theodore's fund operates. Time for some serious upgrades. They might need to move maybe to Connecticut." Evangeline laughed despite herself. "That's downright diabolical. I call it cosmic rebalancing." He pulled her close. "No one hurts what's mine, Evangeline, and you're mine now." As his lips met hers again, she realized her impulsive Miami wedding might just be the best call she'd ever made. She'd fled to escape one life, and stumbled into another that felt truer, righter, than anything she'd known. The morning sun glinted off her ring, scattering light across the walls. Sometimes, she thought, the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living spectacularly with someone who sees your value without needing proof. Miami had given her more than an escape. It had given her a future brighter than she'd dared dream. And as Cassian drew her back to bed, breakfast ignored, Evangeline knew this was just the start of their tale. Chapter 4. Hidden Wealth. The Vale private jet landed at Teterboro just as dusk settled over Manhattan. Evangeline peered through the window as the skyline emerged a familiar view, now layered with new significance. Somewhere in that web of steel and glass, Theodore and Sophia were likely seeing news of her marriage splashed across every tech and society page. "Second thoughts?" Cassian asked, his hand warm on her knee. "About you?" "No." She turned to him, still struck by how natural this felt. "About facing New York society as Mrs. Vale?" "A little." "They'll love you," he assured her, though his eyes gleamed with a hunter's edge. "And those who don't will learn to keep quiet." The door opened, revealing her first taste of her new world. A line of black Bentleys waited at the private terminal, each marked with the subtle Vale crest. A small army of security stood ready, while sharp assistants tapped on tablets, orchestrating their arrival with precision. Mr. and Mrs. Vale, an older man with a crisp British accent, stepped forward. "Welcome home. I'm Winston, the family's chief of staff." "A pleasure," Evangeline managed, trying to exude a confidence she didn't fully feel. "Your mother's waiting at the penthouse," Winston told Cassian. "She's been redecorating." Cassian groaned. "How bad?" "The North Wing's now a proper newlywed suite. There are more flowers than a botanical exhibit." They slid into the lead Bentley, its interior a haven of leather and luxury. As they joined traffic, Evangeline noticed other cars forming a protective ring security, she realized. The Vales didn't just have wealth, they had the kind that demanded constant safeguarding. "Something you should know before we get there," Cassian said, his tone grave. "The Vale family home isn't just a residence, it's a declaration." She soon saw why. The car turned onto Park Avenue and stopped at a building she'd passed countless times, a stunning pre-war edifice spanning a full block. She'd always wondered who owned the top floors with their grand terraces and Art Deco details. "Welcome to Vale Tower," Cassian murmured as they entered a private lobby. The space was more gallery than home, with vaulted ceilings, rare artworks, and marble floors that echoed their steps. A private elevator, platinum trimmed, she noted with a mix of awe and humor, whisked them to the top. The doors opened into what could only be called an urban palace. Chandeliers threw rainbow light across rooms larger than her old apartment. Masterworks lined walls clad in velvet, and every surface shone with the sheen of new wealth made timeless. Cassian, an elegant woman, descended a grand staircase, her Armani suit flawless despite the hour. "And this must be my new daughter-in-law." Margaret Vale was everything Evangeline had pictured, and nothing she'd expected. Her poise was innate, her smile sincere, as she hugged Evangeline. "Welcome to the family, dear," she said warmly. "Though next time, maybe a heads up before the wedding." "Mother," Cassian cautioned, but Margaret dismissed him with a wave. "Oh, relax. I'm thrilled." Isabella Cortez was as dull as a tax form. She linked arms with Evangeline. "Come see what I've done with your suite. The studio lighting's being installed tomorrow," Cassian added. "You're an artist?" As Margaret guided them through the penthouse, Evangeline's head spun. Each room unveiled new marvels. A library of rare manuscripts worth millions, a greenhouse brimming with exotic blooms, a dining hall fit for 60. "Your father's flying in from Singapore tonight," Margaret informed them. "He's cutting his Asia trip short to greet you properly, and we'll need a reception small, just 300 or 400 close friends." "Mother," Cassian started. "Darling, we must. The Cortezes are already grumbling about broken agreements. We need to stand united." She turned to Evangeline. "You'll need a wardrobe, of course. I've set up fittings with all the top designers tomorrow." "I have clothes," Evangeline protested faintly. "You have an artist's closet," Margaret corrected gently. "You need armor. Trust me, dear, I've sailed these seas for 25 years. They reached the north wing, and Evangeline gasped. The space was now a dream suite, with a lounge overlooking the Hudson, a bathroom bigger than her old place, and a bedroom, both lavish and cozy. The artwork. She stepped closer to one wall, recognizing her own style. "I had my team hunt down every piece of yours on the market," Margaret said proudly. "Cassian said you'd sold your early works. I thought you'd want them near." The gesture's thoughtfulness brought tears to Evangeline's eyes. This wasn't the icy matriarch she'd dreaded. This was a woman who grasped the value of holding on to one's essence, even in a new realm. "Thank you," she whispered. "We protect our own," Margaret said simply. "Now rest. Tomorrow, we start your transformation into a veil." After Margaret left, Cassian pulled Evangeline into his arms. "See? I told you she'd love you. She's not what I expected. Veil women never are." He kissed her temple. "Ready to see the closet?" The walk-in was larger than her old studio. Racks of designer pieces all her size lined one wall. Another held shoes from every top name, while a temperature-controlled nook housed bags worth more than most homes. "This is unreal," she breathed. "This is your life now," Cassian corrected. "You're a veil. Time the world saw you as one." A chime sounded on their phones, a security alert. Someone had leaked their marriage license to the press. The story was breaking across all major outlets. Cassian read it and smiled. "Right on time. You planned this?" "I planned it all." He showed her his phone, where a photo of Theodore and Sophia exiting their office was trending. "They look suitably stunned, don't you think?" Evangeline studied the image. Theodore's face was pale, while Sophia gripped his arm with tense fingers. They seemed diminished somehow. "You're quite fearsome when you want to be," she told her husband. "Only to those who earn it." He drew her close. "Tomorrow, New York society meets Mrs. Evangeline Vale. They'll see your strength, your genius, your poise, and they'll know exactly what Theodore squandered." As she fell asleep that night in their vast new bedroom, Evangeline realized her Miami wedding hadn't just given her a husband, it had given her a stronghold. The Vale name was more than riches. It was power, safety, and the freedom to become who she was meant to be. Tomorrow would bring trials, but tonight, in Cassian's arms, she was right where she belonged. Sometimes, she thought as sleep took her, the best revenge isn't just marrying well, it's marrying someone who makes you see you. Never needed revenge at all. Chapter 5. Growing love. Morning light streamed through towering windows, bathing Evangeline's easel in gold. She'd turned part of their private terrace into a studio, finding solace in the familiar scent of acrylics and solvent even as her world shifted. 3 weeks into marriage, she was still uncovering new layers of life. As Mrs. Vale. "You've nailed his eyes," Margaret commented, appearing silently beside her. Her mother-in-law had a knack for popping in unannounced, always with either insight or French pastries. Today, she brought both. The portrait on the easel captured Cassian in a rare, unguarded moment, his usual intensity softened by intimacy. Evangeline had caught him reading in their library, evening light accentuating his features, his expression tranquil. "He's different alone with me," Evangeline admitted, taking a macaron. "The world sees Cassian Vale, tech mogul. I see just Cassian. That's why you're perfect for him," Margaret settled into a nearby chair with her signature elegance. You see the man, not the empire, though you're managing the empire quite well. It was true. The past weeks had been a crash course in high society, and Evangeline had proven adept. Her debut as Miss S. Vale had made waves not for slip-ups, but for the quiet assurance she radiated. I had great mentors, Evangeline smiled, thinking of Margaret's steady guidance and Cassian's unwavering faith. Speaking of which, Margaret pulled a tablet from her Prada bag. The guest list for your gallery opening tomorrow has expanded. The mayor confirmed, and the Whitney's new curator is coming to discuss your winter show. The gallery opening her first. As both artist and Miss S. Vale, the thought still fluttered her stomach, though not unpleasantly. Her work had deepened lately, gaining new richness as her life evolved. Have they RSVP'd? Evangeline asked, not needing to name Theodore and Sophia. Yes. Margaret's smile turned feral. They couldn't say no, given Theodore's firm manages investments for half the attendees, though I hear Connecticut's nice this season. Cassian had followed through on the building renovation. Theodore's firm was indeed shifting to Connecticut, a fact that now amused Evangeline more than it satisfied her. I used to crave revenge, she confessed, adding a stroke to Cassian's portrait. Now, it feels pointless, because you found something better, true joy. Margaret rose, brushing imaginary lint from her Armani suit. Finish that masterpiece and join us for lunch. Your father-in-law wants to talk about the new arts foundation he's launching in your name. After Margaret left, Evangeline kept painting, lost in the dance of light and shadow. She barely noticed time passing until familiar arms encircled her waist. You're making me look too good, Cassian murmured, kissing her neck. I paint what I see. She leaned into his warmth, savoring it. Liar, but his tone was soft. Ready for tomorrow? Yes, she realized, surprised by her own certainty, though not for the reasons I thought. Oh? She turned in his arms, studying the face she'd just painted. A month ago, I wanted to rub Theodore's nose in it. Now, I want to show the world what I've gained. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. His kiss was tender, a contrast to his usual fire. You've changed me too, you know. The mighty Cassian Vale, altered by a Miami wedding, she teased. Transformed by love, he corrected earnestly. I used to see the world in code and contracts, wins and losses. Now, I see it through your eyes full of vibrancy and potential. The admission touched her deeply. This was the Cassian only she knew, the man behind the wealth and influence. Her husband who could shift markets with a call, but still brought her tea each morning. I love you, she said simply. The words feeling natural, true. His eyes darkened with feeling. Say it again. I love you, Cassian Vale. He claimed her mouth in a kiss that started soft, but soon flared into urgency. Paint-smeared fingers tangled in his crisp shirt, leaving marks of their passion. Your mother's expecting us for lunch, she gasped as his lips trailed her neck. She'll forgive us. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to their bedroom. Some things outrank social duties. Later, nestled in their vast bed, Evangeline traced patterns on his chest. Ever regretted our wild Miami wedding? Never. His reply was instant, fierce. You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner. He pulled her closer, kissing her temple. We met when we were meant to. Everything before was just the warm-up. A ping from his phone broke the moment. Cassian checked it, his look shifting to amused satisfaction. What's up? Isabella Cortez just RSVP'd for tomorrow. He showed her the message. She's keen to meet the woman who upended her perfect plan. Should I worry about Isabella? No. He kissed her gently. About stealing the show at that gallery? Definitely. Evangeline smiled, recalling the gown Margaret had helped pick, a stunning piece of silk and fine stitching that made her feel unstoppable. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. Do tell. Well, I've been working on a new series. She nodded to a covered canvas in the corner. It's called Rebirth. The centerpiece is a phoenix rising from silver flames. His eyes softened with understanding. Rising from the ashes of your old life into something more radiant than I ever dreamed. She kissed him lightly. With a man who sees the real me. Always, he vowed. Tomorrow would bring its test society's eyes. Isabella's presence, the inevitable clash with Theodore and Sophia, but here, in their love's haven, none of that mattered. Evangeline had fled to Miami to escape pain. Instead, she'd found a love story grander than any she could have painted. And tomorrow, the world would see what that love had wrought in her art, her life, and the woman she'd become. Sometimes, she thought as Cassian drew her close again, the greatest masterpieces aren't on canvas, they're etched in the heart. One unexpected moment at a time. Chapter 6. Unexpected news. The morning sickness struck Evangeline like a tsunami, sending her racing to their marble bathroom for the third time that week. She'd chalked it up to nerves. At first, the gallery opening had been intense, with Isabella Cortez's sly digs and Theodore's feeble attempts to reconnect. But as Margaret's knowing look sharpened, Evangeline finally booked a visit with the Vale family's private doctor. Now, in Dr. Sullivan's Fifth Avenue office, her hand gripped tightly in Cassian's. She struggled to absorb the news. Triplets, Dr. Sullivan repeated, adjusting his rimless glasses as he pointed to the ultrasound screen. All 3 fetuses are thriving. Based on size, you're about 9 weeks along. Cassian's hold on her hand tightened. 3 babies? His voice mixed awe and disbelief. 2 girls and a boy, the doctor confirmed, shifting the wand to reveal each tiny heartbeat, all equally robust and healthy. Miami had given them more than a marriage, it seemed. Their first night had sparked not 1 miracle, but 3. I know it's a lot, Doctor. Sullivan continued, his tone kind. Multiples need extra care, but you'll have the best team in the nation. The Vale family has a private wing at Mount Sinai, and I've already called in top perinatal experts. Evangeline barely registered him, her focus locked on the screen where 3 little lives pulsed in monochrome. Her free hand drifted to her still flat stomach, wondering how she'd missed the clues, the exhaustion she'd blamed on her hectic life, the sudden recoil from paint fumes, the subtle snugness of her jeans. Evangeline, Cassian's voice pulled her back. His eyes, when she met them, glowed with unmasked joy. You okay? We're having 3 babies, she whispered, a smile piercing her shock. 3. His response was a kiss that sent Dr. Sullivan discreetly out of the room. When they parted, Cassian pressed his forehead to hers, his hand joining hers over her stomach. Thank you, he murmured, voice heavy with feeling, for giving me everything I never knew I needed. The ride home was a haze of joyful tears and stunned laughter. Winston, their ever-capable chief of staff, had been briefed and was already coordinating with security to bolster protocols for the pregnant Miss S. Vale. Your mother will be over the moon, Evangeline realized, as their elevator climbed to the penthouse. 3 grandkids at once. She's already redoing the south wing, Cassian admitted. She suspected for weeks. Margaret waited in the grand salon, practically buzzing with restrained excitement. One glance at their faces confirmed her hunch. Well? She demanded, rising from her vintage chaise with perfect grace. You're getting 3 grandchildren, Mother, Cassian announced, his arm firm around Evangeline's waist. 2 girls and a boy. Margaret's poise broke with a very unveil-like squeak. She pulled them both into a fierce hug. I knew it the way you've been radiant lately, dear. And that moment with the tea last week. Evangeline laughed, recalling how she'd suddenly gagged at her favorite blend. You could have warned me. And missed this joy? Margaret dabbed elegant tears from her eyes. Never. Now, sit before you collapse. You're growing 3 Vales, you need rest. The next hours flew by in a flurry only the Vales could muster. Margaret's design team unveiled plans for a cutting-edge nursery suite. Security tightened. Winston synced with the PR team for the eventual reveal. Through it all, Cassian stayed by her side, his usual razor-sharp focus softened by wonder whenever he looked at her. I can feel you fretting, he murmured, as they retreated to their suite that night. Tell me. Evangeline curled into his embrace, letting his strength steady her. It's not worry, exactly more like overwhelming happiness mixed with fear. We've been married 2 months, and now 3 babies. What if? He silenced her with a soft kiss. No what ifs. We're together in this. You've already shown you can handle anything with grace and grit. This is just our next chapter. 3 babies, she marveled again, guiding his hand to her stomach. They'll need names. Bold names, he agreed. Worthy of their legacy, but distinct enough to be their own. Like their father, she teased, thinking of how Cassian had carved his own way despite family weight. Like their mother, he corrected, who turned a Miami flight into an epic romance. They spent the next hour tossing around names, dreams, and plans for their growing brood. Cassian's phone buzzed with well wishes from the family's inner circle, but he ignored them, wholly focused on his wife and their miracle. Isabella Cortez will be livid, Evangeline realized suddenly. This buries any chance of salvaging the arranged match. Good, Cassian's smile held that feral edge she adored. Let her stew. You've given me something she never could. A love worth choosing, and a family born from it. I never thought I'd have this, she admitted quietly. After Theodore, the first thought my shot at a family was gone. Now I have you, and soon 3 babies. You have more, he reminded her. You've got the whole Vale clan behind you. Our kids will be the most cherished, guarded babies in New York. Poor Theodore, she mused, no trace of bitterness in her tone. He thought he upgraded with Sophia, and instead, he lost the rarest treasure he'll ever know. Cassian kissed her deeply. His loss, my endless gain. That night, as Evangeline drifted off in her husband's arms, she felt a deep sense of rightness. The universe had taken her broken heart and spun it into something glorious, a love story, soon to have 3 new chapters. Miami had given her more than an escape. It had given her a destiny beyond her wildest dreams. And as Cassian's hand rested protectively over their growing miracles, she knew this was just the start of their extraordinary tale. Sometimes, she thought as sleep claimed her, the best revenge isn't just finding joy, it's finding a joy so full that revenge loses meaning. For her, that joy now came with 3 tiny heartbeats and a love strong enough to hold them all. Chapter 7, Shadows Return. The news hit on a brisk fall morning, blazoned across every major outlet and tech journal. Vale Dynasty, locked in, triplet heirs incoming. The New York Times gave its society pages to the story, while TechCrunch ran a feature on the implications for Vale Enterprises' future. Evangeline stood in her pregnancy-safe studio, studying her reflection in a tall mirror. At 5 months along, her belly was unmistakable, impossible to conceal in the Dior dress she'd picked for tonight's gala. The press is losing it, Cassian announced, entering with his tablet. Vale stocks up 15% just on the triplet news. Only the Vales could turn a pregnancy into a market boom, she teased, turning for his morning kiss. How are my 4 favorite people today? His hand spread protectively over her bump. Before she could reply, Margaret swept in, pristine despite the early hour. The responses are pouring in. Every big family on the East Coast is sending congrats. The Cortezes, though, Isabella made a statement, Evangeline guessed, reading her mother-in-law's face. The Post's running her line about convenient timing and hasty weddings. Margaret's smile sharpened. I've dealt with it, Mother, Cassian cautioned. What did you do? Nothing drastic. I just reminded a few people of Isabella's own slip-ups during her time in Milan. Funny how stories vanish when you apply the right leverage. A knock at the door cut in. Winston entered, his usual calm tinged with unease. Miss S. Vale, you have a visitor. Theodore Grayson's in the lobby, demanding to see you. The room chilled. Cassian straightened, his protective side flaring. No way. Wait. Evangeline touched his arm. I should face him. Evangeline, I'm not the woman he betrayed, she reminded him softly. Let me do this. After a tense pause, Cassian nodded. Winston, have security bring him to the Azure Room and stay close. The Azure Room, with its rare European antiques and sweeping park views, was built to awe. Evangeline settled onto a rococo sofa, smoothing her dress over her bump. When Theodore was ushered in, she hardly knew him. Gone was the cocksure financier who'd broken her. This Theodore seemed shrunken, his tailored suit unable to hide his unease. Evangeline, he began, then faltered, eyes locked on her pregnant belly. Theodore, her voice was cool, steady. What brings you here uninvited? He raked a hand through his hair. A tick she once found charming. Now it just looked weak. Triplets, with him. My husband, she corrected firmly. Yes, 2 girls and a boy. I always thought, he stopped. Adrift. We talked about kids. We talked about a lot, Theodore. Then you slept with my best friend. He winced. I screwed up. Seeing you now, with him, carrying his kids, I see what I threw away. No, Evangeline's tone turned iron. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up at my home, in my new life, and play the remorseful ex. I'm happy, Theodore, really, truly happy. Something I never was with you, though I didn't know it then. The papers say you met him in Miami, Theodore pressed. Married him that night. That's not the Evangeline I knew. You never knew me. You knew the version I molded to fit your world. Cassian, she smiled, touching her bump where a baby kicked. Cassian loves me as I am. Every chaotic, creative, impulsive piece of me is different, Theodore argued. The Vales, they're not like us. They're powerful, she finished. Yes, But that's not why I love him. I love him because he sees me, truly sees me, something you never did. A knock signaled Winston's return. Miss S. Vale, your doctor's appointment is in 30 minutes. Thank you, Winston. She rose smoothly, one hand bracing her bump. We're done here. Evie, please. Goodbye, Theodore. She headed for the door, then paused. I hope you and Sophia find peace. I really do. Because I found something better than peace. I found myself. And a man who loves every bit of who I am. She left him there, dwarfed by a world he'd never grasp. In the hall, Cassian waited, his face a mix of pride and worry. Okay? He asked, simply. Perfect, she assured him, kissing him softly. He's so small now. How did I not see it before? Because you've grown, he murmured into her hair, into who you were always meant to be. That evening, prepping for the gala, Evangeline shared a quiet moment with Margaret in the family vault, picking jewelry. You handled him like a pro, her mother-in-law said, clasping a dazzling emerald necklace around Evangeline's neck. Like a true veil. I almost pitied him, Evangeline admitted. He looked so lost. Men like Theodore Grayson often are, Margaret observed. They chase what they think they should want, never seeing what they need. She stepped back, admiring her work. Flawless. You'll own that room tonight. The gala proved Margaret right. Evangeline glided through the night on Cassian's arm, her pregnancy lending her a glow no gems could rival. The old money crowd who'd once eyed her warily now fawned, eager to tie themselves to the future Vale heirs. Isabella Cortez is watching, Cassian murmured during a dance, his hand steady at her waist. Let her watch. Evangeline smiled, feeling the babies shift. Your kids are dancing too. Our kids, he corrected, his eyes softening with love. The next Vales will be as stunning and fierce as their mother. As they swayed, Evangeline glimpsed their story in the faces around them. Theodore and Sophia at their table, looking tense. Isabella by the bar, her flawless features tight with envy. Margaret commanding the matrons, proudly touting her future grandkids. Penny for your thoughts? Cassian asked, as the song faded. I was thinking about fate, she replied. How one desperate choice in Miami led to all this you, our babies, this life. I never dared imagine, not fate. He kissed her softly, ignoring the flashing cameras. Choice. You chose courage, took a chance on a stranger. I chose my heart when I saw you in that bar. Now, we're choosing to build a family. A strong kick from the babies broke their moment, making them laugh. Cassian's hand went to her bump, his smile radiant as he felt their children move. I think they're greeting their dad, Evangeline teased. Hello, little ones, he murmured, heedless of the watching elite. Keep growing strong. The world's waiting. As the night wound down, Evangeline realized something deep. The shadows of her past Theodore, Sophia, Isabella weren't shadows anymore. They were just bit players in a story that had outgrown them. Her real tale was here, in Cassian's arms, with their babies growing beneath her heart and a future brighter than any she could have painted. Sometimes, she thought as they headed home, the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living true, wrapped in a love so pure it transforms all it touches. And her love story, unlikely as its start, was just beginning. Chapter 8, Truth and Trust. The nursery suite, in Vale Tower's south wing, had become a marvel. Hand-painted murals of adventure tales wrapped the walls, while 3 matching custom cribs crafted by artisans who'd furnished royal homes awaited their tiny occupants. Evangeline stood in the center, one hand on her 7-month belly, the other holding a small silk box. What's this? Cassian asked, entering with his jacket off and sleeves up, fresh from a board meeting. Open it, she smiled, handing it over. Inside were 3 tiny platinum bracelets, each finely etched. For the babies, she explained. I had them made from my old engagement ring from Theodore. I wanted to turn something old into something beautiful for our future. Cassian's eyes softened as he read the engravings. Orion Jasper Vale, Luna Sage Vale, and Stella Quinn Vale. Like the names? They'd spent weeks debating, seeking names with strength and meaning. They're perfect, he pulled her close, mindful of her bump, like their mother. The babies chose that moment to kick, making them both laugh. At 7 months with triplets, Evangeline's slim frame had changed dramatically, but Cassian gazed at her with more hunger than ever. I've got something for you too, he said, guiding her to the custom glider, though it's not as poignant as your gift. He pulled an envelope from his satchel. Inside were documents that widened Evangeline's eyes. You bought the whole district? She gasped, scanning the real estate papers. I'm turning it into the Evangeline Vale Art Hub, he explained, eyes alight. A gallery for new artists, affordable studios, and a fund for grants like you once needed. Tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't just a lavish move. It was a deep grasp of her core and values. Cassian, there's more, he continued, sitting beside her. The top floor's your private studio, big enough for any vision, with a playroom so you can work near the babies. You think of everything, she whispered, pulling him into a kiss. I think of you, he corrected, and our family. A knock interrupted them. Winston entered with Dr. Sullivan for Evangeline's weekly checkup. How are our little Vales? The doctor asked, setting up his portable ultrasound. Lively, Evangeline laughed, especially at night. The exam showed 3 healthy babies on track, doctor. Sullivan's face, though, held a hint of worry. What's wrong? Cassian demanded, instantly alert. Nothing dire, the doctor assured them. But with triplets this far along, we should talk bed rest. Your blood pressure's a bit high, Mrs. Vale. No, Evangeline protested. The art hub opening's in 2 weeks. I have to be there. Your health and the babies come first, Cassian said firmly. The hub can wait. Actually, Dr. Sullivan cut in, light activity's still fine, but we'll monitor closely, no standing long. No stress, no boardroom or society nonsense. Cassian's phone buzzed. Isabella Cortez was stirring trouble again, hinting at the pregnancy's timing. He silenced it without a glance. Handled. Mother's taking over all social stuff, and the board deals with me directly. After the doctor left, they lingered in the nursery. Cassian kneeling before Evangeline's chair, hands on her bump. I never told you about that night in Miami, he said suddenly. What I was really doing there, running from the arranged match, she guessed. More than that. He inhaled deeply. That morning, I found out Isabella was working with a competitor, using our engagement to siphon insider info. The marriage wasn't just a family tie, it was a corporate ambush. Evangeline gasped. Did she pull it off? No. His smile turned fierce. Because I met you. While the Cortezes schemed, I was falling in love in Miami. By the time they caught on, their plans were moot because you were my wife. Because I saved you, he corrected. You think I rescued you, but you rescued me from a cold marriage, from a life of deals over bonds. She ran her fingers through his hair, loving how he leaned into her touch. Is that why Isabella's so sour? She lost the man and the merger? She lost what she never had. He kissed her palm. I was never hers to lose. Margaret's arrival broke their moment. Arms full of bags and her tablet. Nursery staff interviews are set for tomorrow, she announced. I've whittled it to the best, all with triplet experience and spotless records. 3 nannies still feels overkill, Evangeline protested. Darling, Margaret sat elegantly in an armchair. You're having 3 Vale babies. Trust me, you'll need the help. I had 2 nannies for Cassian alone, and he was just one. A perfectly behaved one, Cassian added with mock innocence. You climbed the tower's exterior at 5 because you wanted to test gravity, his mother retorted dryly. We hired a safety expert just to Cassian-proof the place. Evangeline laughed, picturing a tiny Cassian wreaking havoc. What if our kids inherit your wild streak? Then we'll need 6 nannies, Margaret declared. Now, about the christening robes, I've had them crafted in Italy, but we should nail down the ceremony. As Margaret outlined plans for the baby's first year, Evangeline felt deep gratitude for this family that had fully embraced her. Her own parents, though caring, had been distant, but Margaret had become not just a mother-in-law, but a true maternal force. I want to show you something, Evangeline said when Margaret paused. With Cassian's help, she stood and moved to a covered canvas. I've been working on this between appointments. The painting she revealed left both Vales speechless. It showed Margaret in her element, commanding a room of New York's elite, but with a subtle warmth in her eyes only family saw. For the art hub opening, Evangeline explained, a tribute to the woman who made it all possible. Margaret's composure broke, tears glistening. She hugged Evangeline gently. My dear girl, she whispered, you've given us far more than we've given you. That night, in bed with Cassian's hand over her bump, Evangeline reflected on how much had changed in months. Penny for your thoughts? Cassian murmured, kissing her shoulder. I was thinking about truth, she replied. How we both ran to Miami from lies, yours with Isabella, mine with Theodore. But by being real with each other, from the start, even as strangers, We found something solid. Something true, he finished. Exactly. She turned carefully to face him. The announcement said, the Vale dynasty was secured, but that's not what these babies mean to me. They're not heirs, they're pieces of our love made flesh. They're both, he said thoughtfully. Legacy and love. Duty and heart like us. Like us, she agreed, feeling the babies move as if in reply. As they drifted off, Evangeline saw that the truth of their story wasn't in headlines or gossip. It wasn't even in grand acts like art hubs or legacies. It was here, in these quiet moments, when the world faded, leaving only their bond honest, profound, and unbreakable. Sometimes, she thought as sleep took her, the greatest truth isn't in plans or expectations, it's in a Miami bar, a leap of faith, the eyes of a stranger who sees your soul, and their truth had given them not just love, but a future more beautiful than either could have dreamed. Chapter 9. New Life. The storm that struck Manhattan, that spring morning, echoed the drama, unfolding in the Vale private wing of Mount Sinai. At 35 weeks, with triplets, Evangeline had been rushed in after her blood pressure spiked during a routine visit. The babies need to come now, Dr. Sullivan announced, eyeing the monitors with concern. Their heart rates are solid, but we can't wait longer. Cassian, who'd been by her side since the admission, gripped her hand tighter. He'd been mid-pitch to investors when Winston broke in with the news. The deal could wait, his family couldn't. Everything's set, Dr. Sullivan continued. The top NICU team's ready. But from these readings, these little Vales are already showing their grit. The or was prepped to Vale standards. 3 teams of specialists stood by for each baby, while the hospital's best surgeons readied for the C-section. I'm scared, Evangeline whispered to Cassian as they wheeled her in, her voice shaky. I know, my love. He kissed her forehead. But you're the toughest person I know. You turned a Miami escape into the greatest romance ever, bringing our kids into the world that's just the next page. Margaret waited outside, her flawless poise cracking with real worry. All's arranged, she assured them. Nurses are vetted, security's tight, and I've cleared the floor of anyone non-essential. Thank you, Mother, Cassian said softly, the words heavy with years of trust. Bring my grandkids safely into the world, she replied, squeezing Evangeline's hand. I'll be right here. The or was controlled chaos, guided by Dr. Sullivan's steady orders. Cassian, in high-end surgical scrubs, stayed by Evangeline's head, whispering love and strength. Ready to meet our kids? He asked, as the procedure started. More than ready, she managed a smile. They've been using my ribs as a punching bag for weeks. At 10:03 a.m., Orion Jasper Vale arrived with a robust cry that brought tears to his father's eyes. Eyes like his mom, Cassian murmured, making a grand entrance. Luna Sage Vale followed 2 minutes later, her cry softer but resolute. The team worked with seamless skill, checking each baby before moving them to incubators. At 10:08 a.m., Stella Quinn Vale completed their trio, her cry a sweet note that made Evangeline sob with joy. She's here, she whispered. They're all here. They're perfect, Cassian's voice broke. All 3 like their mother. The next hours blurred with medical checks and firsts. Though early, all 3 were remarkably strong, needing little NICU time. The Vale genes, paired with Evangeline's resilience, had given them a fierce start. When Evangeline settled into her private suite, more luxury loft than hospital room, the babies were brought in one by one. Orion, the eldest, had Cassian's sharp features and piercing stare. Even hours old, he seemed to assess everything with focus. He'll be running startups before he walks, Margaret predicted proudly. Luna, slightly smaller but no less mighty, blended both parents' traits with a calm air that belied her bold name. The mediator, Cassian noted, as she gripped his finger. Stella, their precious girl, merged Evangeline's delicate lines with Cassian's presence, settling into her mother's arms like she was made for them, her tiny hand brushing Evangeline's face. Hello, my darlings, Evangeline whispered, surrounded by her miracles. Welcome to the world. Word of the triplets' birth raced through New York's elite. The hospital's lobby overflowed with flowers and gifts, each screened by security before nearing the Vale heirs. Isabella sent congrats, Margaret noted casually, arranging a stunning array of rare lilies, probably through clenched teeth. The Corteses have bigger woes, Cassian replied, eyes fixed on his family. Their takeover bid cost them key allies. They're lucky I was too thrilled about fatherhood to push back harder. Theodore sent something too, Winston reported. I sent it back unopened. Evangeline, who once might have flinched at Theodore's name, just smiled. How could she dwell on old wounds with such joy before her? The babies passed between family, each tiny veil already hinting at their unique spirits. Orion bore his legacy with natural ease. Luna watched with quiet insight, while Stella charmed all who held her with her perfect baby grin. They'll change the world, Margaret foresaw, cradling Stella. These three will reshape New York in ways we can't predict. They already have, Cassian murmured, watching his mother bond with his daughter. They've given us something beyond status or power completion. That evening, when visitors faded and the babies slept in their bassinets, Cassian and Evangeline had a moment alone. Thank you, he whispered, holding her close, for giving me everything I never dared dream of. Thank you for being in that Miami bar, she replied, thinking how close she'd come to a different path, for seeing past my broken heart to who I could be. I saw who you already were, he corrected, strong, radiant, capable of boundless love. These babies, they're proof of what I knew that night. The biggest risks yield the greatest rewards. A soft cry from Stella's bassinet had them both moving, tending her in perfect harmony. As they settled back, their miracles sleeping nearby, Evangeline felt a deep rightness. I used to think love was grand gestures and perfect scenes, she mused. But it's this, isn't it? The quiet times, the shared looks, the way you know what I need without me saying it. It's everything, Cassian agreed. The Miami wedding, the society buzz, the corporate games, they're just the frame. This, right here, is our real story. Outside, the storm that ushered in the triplets cleared, revealing a crisp spring night. 3 stars shone extra bright, as if the cosmos cheered the next veils. Sometimes, she thought, as she drifted off in her husband's arms, the best love stories aren't about the start or the wild middle, they're about the quiet joys that make all else fade. With 3 perfect babies nearby and a love stronger than she'd imagined, she knew their tale was just hitting its sweetest chapter. Chapter 10, the celebration, the Vale estate in the Hudson Valley, had morphed into a storybook realm for the triplets' first birthday. Glass pavilions dotted the rolling lawns, while fairy lights turned ancient maples into enchanted canopies. The guest list was a roll call of New York's elite, with private helicopters crowding the local field and luxury cars lining the curved drive. Is all this really needed? Evangeline asked, watching from the master suite's balcony as staff perfected the lavish setup. For the next Vales? Absolutely, Margaret answered, entering with Stella in her arms. The little girl, in a custom Gucci baby frock, reached for her mother at once. There's my star, Evangeline cooed, taking Stella. The baby's chestnut curls danced as she giggled, tiny hands grasping the amethyst necklace. Evangeline wore a first anniversary gift from Cassian. From the balcony, she saw Orion and Luna toddling below, each trailed by a nanny. Orion, ever the trailblazer, was scaling a garden arch, while Luna sat calmly in the grass, studying a leaf with deep focus. They're growing so quick, Evangeline murmured, her voice thick. It felt like just yesterday she'd met them in that hospital room. Now, at 1, their personalities shone: Orion with his bold drive, Luna with her quiet depth, and Stella with her effortless grace. Too quick, Cassian agreed, joining them. He just wrapped a call with the Vale board, ensuring all was set for the night. His tie hung loose, a rare nod to the valley's calm, but his presence remained magnetic. He kissed Evangeline's temple before scooping up Stella. That's why we celebrate every step, every second. Margaret adjusted her wide-brimmed hat, a perfect match to her ivory Saint Laurent look. Speaking of, the cakes here 5 tiers, naturally, each flavor suiting a child's spirit. Orion gets espresso for daring, Luna chamomile for calm, and Stella peach for charm. You've outdone yourself, Mother, Cassian said, his tone more fond than weary. It's not every day my only grandkids turn 1, Margaret replied with a wink. Now, make sure your son doesn't wreck the grounds before guests arrive. I'll manage the caterers. As Margaret swept off, Evangeline leaned into Cassian, watching their family unfold below. The past year had been a rush of firsts, first grins, first steps, first words. Orion had crowed Papa with a victorious smirk, Luna had murmured Mama in a tender moment, and Stella had chirped joy while clutching her favorite teddy. Each milestone had tightened the thread between Evangeline and Cassian, their love blooming with their kids. "Ever think about how we got here?" she asked, head on his shoulder. "Every day," he replied, voice warm. "One wild night in Miami, and now we're here with 3 perfect kids and a life." I couldn't have scripted. The party kicked off as the sun dipped, casting a golden sheen over the estate. Guests mingled under pavilions, sipping rare vintages and marveling at the triplets, the night's true stars. Orion dazzled the crowd by charging toward a jazz trio. Luna sat on a blanket dissecting a gift with precision, and Stella clapped as a juggler, pulled ribbons from nowhere. Evangeline, radiant in a flowing sapphire gown that hugged her restored figure, moved through the throng with the ease of a seasoned Miss S. Vale. Cassian, beside her in a sharp gray suit, glowed with pride not just for their kids, but for the woman who'd remade his world. Miss S. Vale, a familiar voice cut in. She turned to see Isabella Cortez, her raven hair gleaming under the lights, a tight smile on her flawless face. "Quite a party, Isabella," Evangeline replied coolly, unshaken. "Thanks for coming." "Wouldn't miss it," Isabella said, her tone edged. "Triplets in a year, impressive. Though with Vale resources, I suppose anything's doable." Evangeline felt Cassian stiffen, but she squeezed his hand, signaling she had this. "Resources help," she agreed smoothly, "but it's love that makes it real. Something you might not get." Isabella's smile wavered, but before she could snap back, Margaret swooped in, diverting her with a deft excuse about a tech summit seat. "That woman never learns," Cassian muttered. "She doesn't have to," Evangeline replied, watching Isabella fade. "Her spite can't reach us." The night's peak came with the cake, a soaring creation with edible platinum and tiny sugar figures of the triplets. As the crowd sang happy birthday, Orion dove for the espresso tier, Luna poked the chamomile, and Stella smeared peach frosting on her cheeks, sparking laughter and cheers. Later, as guests thinned and the triplets were tucked in by nannies, Evangeline and Cassian slipped to the estate's private lake shore. The sound of water lapping mingled with faint party music, crafting a bubble of peace. "Look at this," Cassian said, pulling a small silk box from his pocket. Inside was a slim eternity ring, 3 stones amethyst, emerald, and topaz for their kids, set in silver. "For you on their first birthday, a mark of what we've made." "It's gorgeous," Evangeline breathed, sliding it beside her wedding band. "But you didn't have to." "I wanted to," he cut in, pulling her close. "You've given me everything. Evangeline, a family, a purpose, a love I never thought real. This is just a piece of what you mean to me." They stood barefoot by the water, the lake stretching into the night. The past Theodore, Sophia, Isabella, all the hurt felt like a faint echo, washed away by their present bliss. "I'd do it all again," she said softly. "Every pain, every tear, if it led to you and them." "So would I," he replied, voice rough with feeling. "Though I'd skip the part where I almost lost you to a cocktail shaker." She laughed, the sound rippling over the water. "Deal." As they kissed under the starry sky, Evangeline knew this was their true celebration, not the grand party, but this quiet bond, proof of a love that defied all odds. Epilogue. A legacy of love. 5 years later, the Evangeline Vale Art Hub stood as a cornerstone of Manhattan's creative scene. Its modern steel frame mirrored the city skyline, while inside, young artists found the space and support to chase their visions just as Evangeline once had. The top-floor studio was her refuge, where she crafted works now gracing global museums, her signature a fusion of Harper and Vale. On this spring day, the hub hummed as the triplets, now 6, raced through, their laughter bouncing off the walls. Orion, lanky and fierce, sketched plans for a mega bridge he'd build someday. Luna, quieter but brilliant, sat with a book on galaxies, occasionally peering at the stars she'd named herself after. Stella, her curls wild, twirled between easels, leaving paint trails a budding artist like her mom. "Mommy, see," Stella called, waving a canvas of bold swirls. "It's us, the family." Evangeline knelt beside her, awed by the vivid chaos. "It's perfect, sweetie, just like us." Cassian entered, fresh from a board meeting where Orion had tagged along, firing questions that stumped execs. "Our son just clinched a sharper deal on the new AI wing," he said with a grin. 6, and he's already outfoxing me. "He gets it from you," Evangeline replied, standing to kiss him, paint still smudged on her cheek from Stella's latest masterpiece. "Though I'd say Luna's the one to watch, she's plotting something cosmic up there." Cassian glanced at Luna, perched on a stool with her galaxy book, her brow furrowed in thought. "She'll have us funding a space station before she's 10, he predicted, then turned to Orion, who was now explaining his bridge sketch to a bemused assistant. "And this one's already designing the future. They're unstoppable," Evangeline said, her heart swelling as she watched their children carve out their own paths, each so distinct yet woven from the same love. "Just like us." The hub's glass doors slid open, admitting Margaret, who strode in with her usual elegance, a sleek tablet in hand and a proud smile on her face. At 60, she remained a force still running Vale Charities, with an iron grip softened by warmth for her family. "The reviews are in," she announced, holding up the screen. "The Times calls your latest exhibit a transcendent evolution of form and spirit. They're saying it's your best yet." "High praise," Cassian noted, slipping an arm around Evangeline's waist. "Though I'd argue your best work's right here." He nodded toward the triplets, who'd now converged on a table littered with art supplies and blueprints. Margaret laughed, a rare, unguarded sound. "True enough. These three are rewriting the Vale legacy already." She knelt beside Luna, peering at her book. "What's this, darling? Planning a trip to the stars?" "Maybe," Luna replied, her voice soft but firm. "I want to see Orion's belt up close. And name a comet after Stella." "Ambitious," Margaret said approvingly, then turned to Evangeline. "Speaking of legacies, the Arts Foundation just funded its 100th scholarship. Your name's opening doors for kids who'd never have had a shot otherwise." Evangeline's throat tightened. That foundation, born from Cassian's gift of the Art Hub, had become her quiet triumph. A way to give back what she'd once craved as a struggling artist. "That's what matters," she said. "Not the reviews, not the sales, just knowing someone's getting their chance." Cassian squeezed her hand, his eyes reflecting the same pride she felt. "You've built more than a career here, love. You've built a movement." The afternoon unfolded in a blur of activity. The triplets roped their parents into a chaotic family project, Orion directing construction of a cardboard tower, Luna calculating its stability, and Stella painting it with wild abandon. Margaret hovered nearby, snapping photos and murmuring about framing them for the penthouse. It was messy, loud, and perfect, a snapshot of the life Evangeline and Cassian had forged from that impulsive Miami night. As the sun dipped below the skyline, casting amber light through the hub's vast windows, the family gathered on the studio's balcony. The city sprawled before them, a glittering testament to ambition and resilience, much like their own story. Evangeline leaned against Cassian. Stella nestled in her lap, while Orion and Luna flanked them, pointing out landmarks they'd claimed as theirs. "Think they'll remember this?" Evangeline asked softly, watching their children's faces glow in the fading light. "They'll remember the feeling," Cassian replied, his voice low and sure. "The love, the freedom, the sense that anything's possible. That's what we're giving them." She nodded, thinking back to her old life, the one she'd fled in that Upper West Side apartment, clutching a wedding invitation that had shattered her world. How small it seemed now, dwarfed by the vastness of what she'd gained. Theodore and Sophia were distant memories, their names rarely spoken, their betrayal a faded scar. Isabella Cortez had faded too, her schemes unraveling as the Vale Empire thrived under Cassian's steady hand and Evangeline's creative fire. "Do you ever miss it?" Cassian asked suddenly, reading her silence. "The simplicity of before?" "No," she answered without hesitation. "That wasn't simple, it was empty. This," she gestured to their children, "the hub, the life pulsing around them, this is everything I didn't know I could have." He kissed her then, a deep, lingering kiss that held all the years they'd shared and the promise of more to come. The triplets giggled, Stella tugging at Cassian's sleeve to join in, and soon they were a tangle of laughter and love, the city humming below. Later, after the kids were tucked into their rooms at Vale Tower, Evangeline and Cassian stood in their penthouse, gazing at the triplets' first birthday photo on the wall, a moment frozen in time, with cake-smeared faces and pure joy. Beside it hung Evangeline's Phoenix painting from years ago, its silver flame still shimmering with the rebirth it had heralded. 10 years since Miami, Cassian mused, pulling her close. "Would you change anything?" "Not a second," she replied, resting her head on his chest. "Every stumble, every leap it brought us here. And here's pretty damn good," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Better than good," she corrected, turning to face him. "It's extraordinary." They stood in silence, the city's heartbeat syncing with their own. The triplets slept nearby, dreaming of bridges, stars, and art. The hub thrived below, a beacon for creators, and in that penthouse, atop a tower that bore their name, Evangeline and Cassian held a love that had defied all odds, a love born in a Miami bar, tested by shadows, and proven in the quiet, radiant moments of a life well lived. Sometimes, Evangeline thought, as she drifted off beside her husband, the best legacies aren't in wealth or fame, they're in the love you leave behind, the lives you touch, the family you build from a single wild chance. Their story, sparked by a desperate escape and a stranger's gaze, had become a masterpiece of its own, a legacy of love that would echo through generations, as boundless and bright as the city they called home.